In the realm of our collective memory lies a peculiar phenomenon that defies explanation: the Mandela effect. It's almost as though the very fabric of our shared world is woven with threads of confusion, leading our memories of the past to diverge from the present. Number 10. In the year 1900, one of the most well-known novels was released. It was The Wizard of Oz, written by L. Frank Baum. 39 years later, many former children got their most desired wish: to see that book become an entertaining film, bringing the characters to life and hoping that they were consistent with the fantasized versions that readers had conjured up in their minds. On the 25th of August, 1939, the real-life version of a favorite novel came to the TV screens, and it didn't disappoint. The film itself sees a young farm girl from Kansas named Dorothy, who, after getting knocked unconscious during a tornado, embarks on a peculiar dream. The dream took her and her trusty pup Toto along the yellow brick road as they headed to Emerald City to meet with the Wizard of Oz. During the trip there, Dorothy meets a variety of characters, each suffering from their own host of issues. There was the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion. And no story is complete without a villain. This is where the Wicked Witch of the West comes in, along with her troupe of winged flying monkeys, whom she enslaved to do her bidding. With its vivid technicolor and familiar atmosphere, The Wizard of Oz became one of the most beloved movies in TV history. Perhaps it's for this reason that many people believe that through their repetitive reading and subsequent watching, they've memorized all the conversation points, character details, and background features. One of the most well-known sayings that's still quoted today even makes cameos in other movies, and it was a particular phrase spoken by the Wicked Witch. Many may already know exactly what this line is. It was during this scene where the villain was gathering her flying monkeys to send them after Dorothy, with the intention of capturing her and bringing the young woman back to the witch's house, that the Wicked Witch uttered or shouted the command, "Fly, my pretties, fly." The monkeys took to the sky, setting off to fulfill their master's command. The phrase sounds in place, consistent with the personality of this dominant character. It turns out, though, that in this universe, that isn't the line. After years of that line being quoted as such, and being referenced in books, movies, and TV shows, it appears that it, like several other things, has been subjected to alteration. Most might find this disturbing and completely out of place, but according to this universe's narrative, the actual line is just "fly, fly." Just the same word repeated twice. No mention of pretties at all. You may be thinking this was just another case of misremembrance, a misremembrance that whole fan bases dedicated to the Wizard of Oz seem to share. Perhaps they just made it up for no apparent reason, or a good portion of humanity is mistaking it for a different movie. Maybe the entire movie was refilmed to make this change, believing that "Fly, my pretties, fly" just didn't seem to fit. Or the more likely scenario, we're living in the upside down. Only rarely, with Mandela effects, are there actual pieces of residual evidence that suggest our false memory may not be so false after all. Aside from our collective memory of this well-known quote, there is one other piece of evidence. In 1996, the American animated musical The Hunchback of Notre Dame came to TV screens, a film loosely based on the Victor Hugo novel of the same name. Most of it was changed to make it a lot more family-friendly. The plot centers around a Romani dancer named Esmeralda, a powerful minister of justice named Claude Frollo, who plans to commit genocide in Paris, and most notable, Quasimodo, the protagonist, a kind-hearted bell ringer who adores Esmeralda. It's in one scene of this film where a little music from The Wizard of Oz tunes in, as the gargoyle, Laverne, stands against an orange background with a flock of pigeons flying past, leading an attack on the soldiers below. Laverne shouts out a line as a direct reference to the Wicked Witch of the West in The Wizard of Oz. "Fly, my pretties, fly, fly," he chants, cackling like a witch shortly after. It was clear, given the music and circumstances presented, that this was truly a reference to the beloved film, serving as evidence that the watchers weren't the only ones who remembered the witch's line correctly. Number 9. Rose and Jim Totino. shared a passion for food. Specifically, they enjoyed making it and wanted to satisfy the world with their incredible food. So in 1951, the pair opened up their first pizzeria in Minneapolis, Minnesota. When they first started to roll the dough and bake their pizza to perfection, they could never have imagined that they'd be serving up to 300 million party pizzas every year. What started out as a simple, small takeout pizza shop soon bloomed into a functioning sit-down restaurant at the request of happy owners. Rose and Jim would bake 400 to 500 pizzas daily, and just a decade later, Totino's finer foods began. This led to the mass production of frozen pizza that could be baked in the comfort of one's own home. It didn't take long for Totino's to establish a significant presence within the frozen pizza industry. The establishment's skyrocketing to fame was also a true phenomenon to behold. But as we delve into the history of the most beloved frozen pizza brand, you might be thinking that something sounds a little off. It's almost as if the name Totino's Pizza doesn't sound quite right. While doing some grocery shopping, some eagle-eyed citizens went to grab their favorite pizza one day. As they began to load the shopping cart, their eyes fell on something strange. Written in bold, bubbly writing was the name Totino's. They stopped, and color drained from their faces. Totino's? Isn't it Tostino's? They questioned. It turns out that many of the happy customers recall the frozen pizzas having a slightly different name. To many, Tostino's just sounds right, catchy, and it flows better. Bewildered by the sight, some may instantly turn to Google to search for the packaging or question if the name was changed, and all they'll find is the name Totino's, as it's apparently been this entire time. Sure, it's easy to make a simple mistake in pronunciation, but when tens of thousands of customers, regular buyers of the product, begin questioning their very reality as they recall that extra S, you have to admit something strange might be going on. Number 8. Unlike the artwork of modern times, historical paintings are host to the finer and intentional details. Each of these classical works of art holds some sort of meaning and was placed there with intent, whether it's the faint smile on the Mona Lisa, the near contact of the hands in the creation of Adam, or the golden bracelet that hangs loosely on the figure seen in The Scream. That's right, the golden bracelet, the delicate feature that no one seemed to notice, unnoticed because it simply wasn't there before. The Scream is a painting meticulously created by Edvard Munch, who didn't know that it would become his most famous painting. This particular design was subjected to recreations totaling 4 colorful versions. Munch had painted 2 versions of The Scream, and Pastel drew another 2. He also created a black and white lithograph of the art piece. The artwork itself shows an androgynous figure standing upon a bridge beneath a boiling sky, which appears to be aflame with orange and red tones. The figure, wearing a blue coat, holds his elongated hands to his skull-like head. His eyes are in a state of shock, and he appears to be unleashing a spine-chilling shriek. It's this very rendition that's listed as the second most famous in art history, following the Mona Lisa. Yet, in most analyses of the piece, art historians fail to mention one particular detail: that golden bracelet that dangles down from his wrist and merges with the coat. With the various details present within this classic, it shouldn't have been missed. It hung in art galleries, observed by very art enthusiasts for centuries, but almost no one seemed to notice the jewelry. Looking at it in conjunction with the rest of the painting, it certainly appears out of place too. It seems random, an afterthought, evidenced by the lack of continuity where the bracelet meets the side of the hand. It also appears slightly transparent, with the hand being visible underneath the layer, meaning that no place had been intentionally left for it. This Mandela effect had art enthusiasts wondering if someone had broken into the museum only to add this specific piece of jewelry to a previously undecorated figure. It seems though that this particular painting has been subjected to more than one subtle change. Some have sworn that the Scream's background was completely different. It took on less of an orange, nauseous hue, and instead had blues and grays, basic and lifeless. They also recall there being some swirls, a boat on the water, and no background figures. Number 7. Can you smell what the Rock is cooking? Probably not, because that's not the actual catchphrase apparently. Everyone knows Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, mostly by his ring name The Rock, who not only served as a professional wrestler in WWE, but also became a renowned American actor, starring in a variety of fan-favorite films. The Rock's WWE career, though, is far more extensive, with many considering him one of the greatest pro wrestlers of all time. Over the course of his career, he won 16 championships, including 9 World Heavyweight Championships, 2 WWF Intercontinental Championships, and he's the 5-time co-holder of the WWF Tag Team Championship. He's also the 6th WWF Triple Crown Champion and the winner of the 2000 Royal Rumble. People all over the world tuned into the wrestling channels to catch the performance, cheering on their favorite wrestler. As eyes stayed glued to TV screens, everyone awaited the famed catchphrase that this celebrity began using back in 1998 during a pre-match interview. The saying became instantly famous among fans, and even among those outside of the world of wrestling. "Can you smell what The Rock is cooking?" became a commonly used phrase said among many all over the world. It's no doubt catchy, simple, and fun to say. Now, though, it's changed and become something that's far less catchy and almost senseless. Allegedly, The Rock's most well-known saying is actually, "If you can smell what The Rock is cooking." The wrestler used this phrase as an analogy of smelling food to signify understanding a situation or concept. He popularized the phrase, meaning, "Do you understand what I'm saying?" or "If you know what I mean." Fans and even those who heard it secondhand don't recall it being the original saying. It just doesn't flow as well as the one they remembered. Many Mandela effect victims suggest that "Can you smell what The Rock is cooking?" makes so much more sense. It implies the question, "Can you understand what The Rock is saying?" Those who are unaffected by this particular example, existing in an alternate universe, seem to recall both "if" and "do," but never "can." Luckily for the victims of the altered reality, there is some residual evidence in this case, and it comes in the form of newspaper articles and even a t-shirt. One newspaper clipping starts its article off with "Can you smell what The Rock is cooking?" before delving into the details of an upcoming film starring the man himself. The next article features a picture of a celebrity holding a flamethrower, accompanied by the same quote that starts it off. There's also a UPN article with the same version, and another detailing The Rock's favorite catchphrase. In fact, there are another 26 such newspaper articles that seemingly all got it wrong. We also have a t-shirt, white, with The Rock's face in the center, bearing the exact same quote. Number 6. Houston, we have a problem. Things are not what they seem. Jim Lovell and Jeffrey Kluger came together to bring us an intriguing book that detailed the Apollo 13 lunar mission of 1970. Then, in 1995, the mission, along with the book, was dramatized and adapted into a docudrama film of the same name. It followed the lives of astronauts Lovell, Jack Swigert, and Fred Haise, and their journey to the moon aboard Apollo 13, America's 3rd moon landing mission. Before reaching their destination, though, an issue occurs. There was an onboard explosion that deprived the craft of a great amount of its oxygen supply and its electric power. This forced the NASA flight controllers to intervene, aborting the mission, which subsequently turned into a struggle to get these 3 astronauts back to the ground. The director, Ron Howard, went to great lengths to make the film as accurate as possible, going as far as employing a NASA technical assistant in astronaut and flight controller training. It comes as no shock that the film made use of a very well-known phrase when things went awry. The iconic line is, "Houston, we have a problem." At least that's what most people remember happening in this particular film. For most of those who watched the movie, the line was always that, and has been as such, unchanged for their whole lives. Then, one day, everything changed. That iconic phrase vanished from the movie, and was replaced by something less recognizable. "Houston, we've had a problem," was the new line, implying that the problem had come and gone. The scene itself seemed to change as well. Instead of being the up-close shot of Tom Hanks as it was previously, it was now a full-body shot taken from a lower angle looking upward. There are countless Reddit posts that discuss this very Mandela effect, each seemingly maintaining that the current version of reality uses the line, "Houston, we've had a problem." But here's where things get strange. A couple months down the line, some Reddit users were browsing the Mandela effect subreddit and happened across the same example again, only this time, it was the other way around. The iconic line was now back to "Houston, we have a problem." This particular instance has become known as the Mandela effect flip-flop, where something notable changes, it's noticed, and then it changes back. At this point, the scene itself had reverted to the original version, featuring a close-up shot of Tom Hanks' face and him uttering the line. It was mind-blowing for those who went to rewatch the movie, shocked at the change that they all seemed to notice was there. At this time, all the previous articles that mentioned the initial Mandela effect were changed, only to state that the misquote had always been "we've had" and not "we have." Following this, there was no further evidence to suggest that the former was used in the film, and the latter became the official line. This Mandela effect changed from "Houston, we have a problem" to "Houston, we've had a problem," and then back to "Houston, we have a problem," leaving viewers confused and in search of answers. Number 5. Disney is notorious for its disturbing and sinister parental fatalities in almost every single one of their movies. Simba's father met an ugly end in The Lion King. Quasimodo's mother from The Hunchback of Notre Dame was brutally slain. Tarzan's parents were targeted by a leopard. In Brother Bear, the cub named Coda is left motherless. In Frozen, the king and queen's voyage ended in tragedy. And then we have the notorious and saddest one of them all, Bambi. Although it's incredibly sad, the movie became a favorite in America alongside Dumbo, and it's seen as a major catalyst in what's now considered environmental films. Bambi, the 1942 American animated film, was based on the book Bambi, A Life in the Woods, written by Felix Salten. The movie follows the struggles of the main character, Bambi, his friends Thumper and Flower, and his possible love interest and childhood friend, Feline, another fawn. The plot centers around Bambi learning to grow up in his forest home alone, after Man, the villain of this story, slew his mother. Most fans remember that incredibly disturbing moment. Bambi's mother was showing her son the ways of the forest, accompanying him to a spot in the meadow where new spring grass was growing. While grazing, though, a harrowing event begins to unfold. A hunter was lurking nearby. Once the mother sensed the danger, she orders for her son to run to the thicket. The two gallop together, trying to escape the hunter's weapon. Once Bambi was in a more forested area, one more bang rang out. Suddenly, the doe is no longer following him. The young fawn is left calling out "mother" repeatedly, until he's eventually found by the great prince of the forest, who says, "Your mother can't be with you anymore." Subsequently, the film continues with Bambi's ventures into a life without a mother, as he navigates the ways of the forest for the remainder of the movie. Most recall this saddening moment taking place at the very beginning of the movie, allowing the subsequent events to unfold, which is the logical way for the film to develop and is consistent with Disney's immediate slaying of parental figures. But it seems once again that our minds are playing tricks on us. Bambi's mother actually only meets her untimely end halfway through the film, a feature that many victims of the Mandela effect maintain is incorrect. Serving only partially as residual evidence are the lists of top saddest movies of all time, most of which suggest that, quote, the rest of the movie shows a young deer having to fend for himself and navigate through the challenges, emphasis being on the rest, implying that the sad event happened very early on. Many who watched the heart-wrenching film appear to agree that it would have happened at the beginning, or at least just a few minutes in, and it just made more sense that way. Number 4. In Matthew 6, verses 9 to 13, and in Luke 11, verses 2 to 4, we read of the disciples asking Jesus how they should pray. His response came with the most notable song of worship in history, the Lord's Prayer. Now, you might be thinking, why has this particular traditional prayer been added to the list? What could have possibly been changed? With this strange Mandela effect, there are 2 lines that have seemingly been altered, though there's much residual evidence for it, aside from our collective memories. Those two lines come from the traditional version of the Lord's Prayer, and it reads, "Forgive us our trespasses," followed by, "as we forgive those who trespass against us." That sounds about right. The lines are just as we remember them. They're consistent with the most used King James Version of the Bible, right? Well, wrong. It was this very sentence that was altered, only by a few words, changing its meaning and the flow of the prayer altogether. The line in every King James Version now reads, "Forgive us our debts, as we've forgiven our debtors." Reciting the full song in its entirety with this alteration completely changes it. You might be thinking that perhaps the trespasses came from a different version of the Bible, but you'd be shocked to find that the English Standard Version, American Standard, Holman Christian Standard, Geneva Bible, New American Standard, and the New Revised Standard Version have all seen the same so-called change. Trespasses replaced with debts and debtors. It's almost as though trespasses never existed at all. Number 3. Walt Disney Pictures is the main company behind some of the most beloved children's animations. At the start of these films, the company's presence is announced with the unforgettable logo. The logo always features a fairy tale castle, one that was inspired by Disneyland's Sleeping Beauty castle, as the Magic Kingdom's Cinderella castle. Usually, the castle is accompanied by a magical rainbow-like arch that forms behind it. The logo introductions, of course, have undergone several changes since they were made in 1985. With some variations in color and lighting settings. The focus of this Mandela effect example, though, isn't really about the logo itself, but rather the animations that accompanied the castle at the start of the Disney animations. More specifically, it focuses on one particular character, Tinkerbell, sometimes called Tink or Miss Bell, as the tritagonist of Disney's Peter Pan. She plays the part of a sassy fairy who tags along as Peter's sidekick. Her attitude, unintelligible fairy language that sounds like the jingling of a bell, and her pixie dust made this character a fan favorite over time, eventually leading to her very own origin film, which blossomed into a franchise called The Disney Fairies, showcasing Tink's adventures with her fairy family and friends. Due to her notability, Tinkerbell was recruited as the character that would fly around the screen during the logo introduction, fly over the castle, and sprinkle her pixie dust, ultimately creating that archway feature. Many also recalled the fairy would then dot the eye of Disney with her wand. This is the intro that many Disney movie watchers seem to remember, even though the company denies that it ever existed. Tinkerbell's involvement with the logo apparently never happened. When this Mandela effect began to circulate on social media, users were left shocked and made their comments on what they remembered. Their recollections were consistent with one another, making this mystery all the more perplexing. In an effort to find supporting material for their claims, many social media users began to search for residual evidence of the Tinkerbell intro, and they eventually found it, only it wasn't exactly how they remembered it. Instead of Tink flying over the castle and sprinkling fairy dust, she actually flew around the Disney DVD logo, where she stopped to dot the eye and fly away. It was a different version of what they remembered, but it was at least a start. This very discovery would force the victims of this Mandela effect to question why the company would deny its existence when it clearly did happen. While most do recall that Tinkerbell dots the eye in Disney, they seem to recall it differently. A few don't remember there being a castle or that the character flies over it, while others passionately state how golden dust trickled down as it marked the archway. By the end of the discussion, it seemed that most had accepted the narrative that they'd simply misremembered the introduction. But then another piece of evidence emerged that brought them right back to the alleged false memory. The evidence took the form of the introduction to the Bambi movie, lasting just 6 seconds. The Disney Castle logo appears on screen with its familiar blue background, followed by a flash of light and the establishment of Walt Disney. Then a ball of light marks the path for the archway, and just a second later, Tinkerbell flies toward the viewer, turns, and flicks her wand, initiating the beginning of the Bambi film. Even with this new piece of supporting proof, the mystery's far from over. That introductory video was labeled as fake, taking us right back to the very beginning of the argument that made us question whether or not Tinkerbell was involved with the Walt Disney logo introduction. Number 2. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's the wrong saying. Superman started off as an American comic strip superhero, a character created by Jerry Siegel and the artist Joe Shuster for DC Comics. This notable hero first appeared in Action Comics in 1938 and became a recurring character in the successive comic books. Superman was so famous that it was even introduced as a newspaper strip, giving it the chance to expand its reach. By 1940, the Man of Steel was starring in his very own radio drama, with some features from Superman's initial established origins. This was followed by more comics, one after another, until 1978, when the first Superman movie was released, adding key elements to its origins and establishing the S on his suit that now dominates the character's main features. Also serving as a prominent feature in Superman was one particular catchphrase. It went, "Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Superman." At least that's what it should be. It seems that not even the simplest of comics are safe from the wrath of the Mandela effect that seeks to change the universe as we know it and gaslight us when we call it out. Taking from the Superman franchise, children would run around chanting this very line, a makeshift cape trailing behind them as they lifted their arms in a Superman position. As they grew, they seemed to recall those fun times, only to find disappointment when they realized that their memory was false. The line instead went, "It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman." There were no questions and no exciting answer. They were just simple statements. It quickly became obvious that this new rendition didn't sound accurate, and it's left many avid comic book readers and superhero enthusiasts perplexed by this bizarre so-called change. Number 1. Are you ready to have your mind completely blown? The Mandela effect is sure to do that. Set aside from the rest of the Mandela effect examples, this one doesn't relate to a misremembered logo, an altered phrase, a song verse that no longer exists, or the changing of a name. This one focuses on something much closer to us, the human skull. William Shakespeare's Hamlet gave us the most poetic testament of what our craniums look like. Hamlet holds up the skull of Yorick, a former court jester, and he delivers his inner monologue, allowing us to take in the details of the artifact. It was a yellowy white color with large eye sockets, a nasal cavity, a smooth rounded back, crooked teeth, indentations, and sutures where there should have been. Obsessed with the human body, artists would recreate this particular feature, sketching out each of these obvious details. Holes where they were meant to be holes, lines in their correct places, and smoothness where smoothness was due. Such renditions have followed us through time. So pleasing were that they saw we tattooed them on our bodies, believing that they were accurate representations. As much as we thought about the human skull, all of that knowledge is about to fall away as you stare into the face of an unrecognizable cranium. Remember that aforementioned smoothness that we recall the back of the head being? A simple dome with a jaw. Well, it turns out it's not so smooth after all. On either side of our heads, we now have what look like miniature rounded horns. They don't extend too far to be overly noticeable, but they're definitely there, and we would have seen them without a doubt. They're called temporal bones and extend behind the ears, serving as protection for our brain, as well as housing the structures responsible for facial movement, balance, and hearing. At least that's the functioning of the bony plate that the horn-like extrusions are attached to. Those extended parts seem to hold no use, aside from making us question what we know. Admittedly, this feature could have been an easy one to miss, but this next detail is certainly alarming, and one can only argue that they were never there before. Let's start with a question. How many cavities does the skeletal face have? There's the mouth, the nasal cavity, and 2 eye sockets. So there are 4 obvious holes present there, one of which is simply divided in half by the septum. Now, look at a picture of the human skull again. Notice anything new, like 6 extra holes that were seemingly never there before? There are 2 holes that have appeared above the eye sockets, directly beneath the eye sockets, and another 2 on the chin. Where did they come from? Why are they there, and why didn't we see them before? These strange holes have a name. They're called foramina. The 2 above our eyes are the supraorbital foramina. The 2 beneath our eyes are the infraorbital foramina, and the 2 on our chins are the mental foramina. These terms don't sound familiar, do they? That's possibly because they didn't exist before, but allegedly the foramina serves as safe protective passageways for nerves, vessels, and soft tissue. Those affected by this Mandela effect testified that this word and those strange holes weren't mentioned in the textbooks or the historical anatomy books, but they are now. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.